dealing with all these different types of vehicles who are going to be flying in these different types of role and still having an ecosystem where they can operate safely, do you think giving independence to all the operators is the way to go? Because all of them will like to dictate their own vision onto that. And unless there is some kind of a standard, at least that everyone have to follow, I think, it's going to be a challenge. So what are you looking to do in that sort of problem, solving that problem?
Yeah. So one of the ways that we are working with many of these industry partners is through the an ASTM standards working group, specifically focused on the providers of service for UAM. The PSU is part of the software architecture that we're proposing for these types of extensible traffic management services, very similar to UTM, where where you have kind of a communications bridge that allows different operators to come, hook in, get situational awareness, get an understanding of, um, you know, being able to kind of um, understand what their operational intent is, monitoring and doing conformance monitoring to make sure that they are doing what they say they are, and doing command capacity balancing, where if we know, much like in today's operations, for example, if they're trying to get to a vertiport or they're trying to get to an entry exit point into controlled airspace, that we're not overloading those resources. And potentially assigning delay, doing a ground hold if we think they're going to overload a particular vertiport or a particular entry exit point. The approach that if we can handle this, well, let's based on our density, if we can handle this strategically first, let's start there. Can we, how far was that going to get us? What kind of densities will that support? In the meanwhile, we're continuing research to look at options about, well, okay, what are other things can we do to help maintain separation? What about speed control and advisories that those aircraft are going to have to meet? Understanding that there's going to be complexities, like we said, with mixed equipage, the more autonomous they are, then now we have to worry. Well, okay, now we have to worry about, is there going to be a delay because you have to send a signal up to the aircraft? It's not like,
So I suppose, there will be a learning process where we go through the
yeah,
phases of adopting and learning and changing and and also I think at one point, because at the moment, the way I look at it is that we're focused on origination and destination, and we are envisaging, similar kind of, what we already know, which comes from the aviation world, which is very fixed rooted and fixed times and fixed this and that. It's scheduled. Um, Whereas the way I think of UAM is a lot more flexible, a lot of dynamicism, and so on. But I think before we get to that, we have to start somewhere, and that requires some level of coordination, which you are referring to. Um,
yeah.
but uh, uh, moving forward,
Mhm.
um,
Well, I
I
think
feel
that
like,
within.
sorry, go on.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, I think within, you're right. I think, we have to kind of make those smaller steps with the idea of more fixed routes. But I think a lot of what we're talking about is also applicable as you start expanding what might be a cooperative area. Generally has to be some idea of what your intent is. You're going to have to start somewhere, you're going to have to end somewhere. And within that, just I think a lot of the agreement that has to happen is that, you're saying you're going to be somewhere at a particular time. And from there, that's information you could share with another operator. And it doesn't mean necessarily that, it has to be a pre-established route, but rather, I think as long as you know what your intent is.